You drinking scotch? Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to the Warsaw Family Amphitheater here at Temple Bat Yahm as we continue our Shabbat Under the Clouds series well into the June gloom period, but we know beyond the clouds there's a blue sky, which is an important thing to always remember when there are clouds around. We welcome you here in person, on Zoom, on streaming services. We're glad to have you, whether you are a regular or a first-timer or a visitor. In particular, I want to welcome Jonathan Ornstein, who is here all the way from Krakow, Poland, came specially just for this Shabbat here at Temple Bat Yahm. That's not quite true. He has some other communities he's speaking at. But we are so pleased to have him here for Shabbat to share a little later on in the service some experiences there as the Executive Director, CEO of the JCC of Krakow, to hear about the reemergence of Jewish life in that part of the world. I'm pleased to share the bima with Cantor Elisa Waltzman and Paul Zuhl, as always, longest serving member of the music staff here at Temple Bat Yahm. How many years is it? 34 years. Wow. And many more to come. We don't plan on it. Friends, we're going to begin by joining together in the blessing over the candles. You can follow on page 120. Amen. On page 125, where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? Together, let's read. On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide, and let's continue. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. And on page 138, we welcome Shabbat, as tradition would have it, with the words of Lecha Dodi, page 138, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Now that we've welcomed Shabbat, let's welcome each other. Find someone you don't know, introduce yourself, say Shabbat Shalom. Folks at home, time for the breakout rooms. Up, if you happen to have taken a seat, page 146, page 146, and we join back together as a community for the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu. Please be seated. On page 148, let's join together in the words of Ma'ariv Aravim. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim B'chokhmah Poteach She'arim Uvitvuna Meshane Itim Umachalif Et Hazmanim Umesader Et HaKochavim B'mishmeoteihem Barakia Kirtzono בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו.
אל חי וקיים, תמיד מחלנו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
המעריב הרבים.
Amen. On page 151, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us together. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form?
Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Let's rise for Shema, 152. Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן.
Please be seated as we continue with the words our ancestors sang on the shores of Freedom's Sea, Mi Chamocha, page 158.
אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך הוא שמו.
גאל ישראל.
Amen. Page 160, Hashkivenu.
לחיים, לחיים.
Shema.
הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Amen. Page 162, Yismechu. Page 165. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge or a broken dam, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Page 164, let's rise for the Amidah.
Adonai שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, אלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים וחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים,
be seated. Page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. Together, may all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise.
Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
Amen. Page 175. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael, tfilatam b'ahavat kabel, u'tehi ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Let's continue page 176 till the conclusion of the Amidah in silence, the prayer of the page, or the prayer, the heart, and we'll come back together for Shalom Rav, which is on page 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Ki ata melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
Amen. May the one who brings peace to the highest heavens bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world. And we say,
Amen.
Amen. Page 382, our prayer for those in need of healing, of body, of mind, of spirit. Actually, this refrain, El Na Rafan Allah, is in this week's Torah portion. It's a prayer of only 5 words that Moses recites to heal his sister Miriam. And from this prayer emerges the more complete prayer that we find and that we join together in thinking of those here with us, recovering, those at home, those awaiting treatments, diagnoses, surgeries, those who are struggling with mental illness, addiction, and infertility. Page 382, let's join together.
Rafa'enu Adonai v'nerafeh.
We now have our brief intermission in the form of the Kiddush. Wine and grape juice is located strategically throughout the amphitheater, and I invite you to head up there and grab wine or grape juice. I believe the wine is red and the grape juice is not. Thank you very much. And if you could please rise. We'll join together in Kiddush. Those at home, now's the time to grab your favorite Manischewitz bottle or whatever it is you're having. Looks like Tiernak's drinking water. Marion Fink hasn't waited at all. Looks like Lisa's got coffee, iced coffee maybe. No? Oh, it's water? Okay. Or a very, very big tumbler of wine, one or the other. Please rise. Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu.
V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'vratzon hinchilanu, zikaron le'maseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila le'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'vratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Silver polish.
Please be seated. So, those among us who have biological Jewish ancestors, raise your hand if any of those ancestors came here from Eastern, you don't even know the question yet, from Eastern Europe. Okay, so everyone but the Persians. Okay, raise your hand if you have ancestors who come from a place that at one point or another in the 500 years has been labeled Poland. Okay, that's almost as many. And raise your hand if your ancestors specifically come from Krakow. At least anyone in your family tree that you know of. So we have a couple. Well, I have on one side grandparents who hail from Poland of one sort or another, and there's only two things that I grew up knowing about Poland. It's one huge cemetery of Jewish people, and never go there because the Poles are the worst. And you don't want to contribute to their economy. That was the thinking a few years ago. But we're here to tell you the Poland of then is not the Poland of now. And we have someone here who did the reverse immigration of just about every other American Jewish family. Instead of just coming from Poland to America, he's gone back and now lives in Krakow. I had the great pleasure of spending some time with Jonathan earlier today, Jonathan Orenstein, who is the CEO of the JCC in Krakow. That's where home is for him. and his wife and small child. Wife and small child miss him because he spends so much time here in North America, but he does so for a very good reason, and that is to raise awareness of the reflourishing of Jewish life in Krakow and Poland more generally, and also some of the wonderful things that the JCC does there in Krakow. We're very honored to have Jonathan with us, and I want to thank Dean and Madeline Maylin, new members of our congregation, recent TBYers, who have brought him here to us. And I would like to invite Jonathan to come join us and share some stories from his time JCC in Krakow. And I did say at the beginning that you came especially to speak here tonight. That was a little hyperbole. He spent the whole week in Southern California, and last night was all the way on the other side of the 73, speaking at the J.
Thank you. To be fair, I did actually, because with thanks to the support of Dean and Madeline, I did come out to speak here tonight. And because I was already coming out, then I figured I'm already out here, I might as well speak in 6 or 7 other synagogues. But I did come out to speak here. So first of all, is this good here? Am I? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sorry about that. Is that better? Okay. Shabbat Shalom. As the rabbi alluded to, Poland is a place that we generally associate very strongly with death and tragedy, of course, because of the recent history there. But I want to tell you tonight a little bit about life, which is not usually what goes together, Poland and life. A few years ago, a young woman came into my building, to the JCC in Krakow, which is, just to understand our geography, it's about an hour away from Auschwitz, an hour's drive. And she was looking for a rabbi. My dad would have been very happy if that rabbi was me. Things turned out differently, so she had to settle for the executive director. They bring her up to my office. She's looking very, very nervous. I say, "How can I help you?" She says, "I just heard a story and I don't know what to do." I said, "Tell me." She said, "A few days ago, my grandmother called me over, said, 'You have to come over right away.' She said, 'Grandma, is everything okay?' 'Yes, I'm fine. Just come over.' She hurries over to her grandmother, who was at that time in her mid-80s, and said, 'What's going on?' Sits her down on the edge of the bed and says, 'I have to tell you something.' She said, 'When I was a little girl, I was in the ghetto.' By the way, this is complete shock. This is a young girl who grew up, young woman who grew up Catholic, had no idea about anything Jewish. The grandmother continues, 'I was a young girl in the ghetto. My parents brought me to the edge of the ghetto one night, handed me over to somebody who smuggled me out of the ghetto, passed me over to strangers. And the last thing that my parents said to me when they said goodbye, which was, of course, the final time they saw her, was never tell anyone you're Jewish.' She kept her promise to her murdered parents, got married, children, career, a whole life, and for 70-somewhat years, never told anyone she was Jewish, including her husband, until she sat her eldest granddaughter down and said, 'I'm Jewish and you're Jewish. I never was able to find out what that meant. You go find out what that means.' And that young woman sitting in my office, and I'm trying to look at her and pretend that I hear stories like this every day, which I do not. And I said to her, first, as I maintained my poker face, I said, oh yeah, no big deal. Normal story that I hear every day of these confessions. I said, you've come to the right place. There are so many other people like you here. And hundreds, if not thousands, of young people today in Poland are finding out they're Jewish. This is also the story. You mentioned my wife and a young child. I have a 16-month-old baby. My wife found out that she was Jewish in her early 20s, came to the JCC for a Hanukkah party. We met, and there you go. So it's also a very personal story for me. How are these people? What are we talking about, though? People finding out they're Jewish in Poland. It's not obvious. So I think we know very, very quickly, Poland was a very Jewish place for a long time. This we know. 75% of the world's Jews were living in Poland 300 years ago. 3 out of every 4 Jews on the planet. It's like Israel, almost like Israel and the United States together is what Poland was for the Jewish people. 1939, Poland has 3.5 million Jews. During the Holocaust, the next few years, over 90% are murdered. Half the victims of the Holocaust were Polish Jews. We know that there were survivors. We know they came to our communities around the United States, to Cuba, Argentina, wherever they could, Australia, wherever they could go. And for us, usually, that's the end of the story. There were Jews living in Poland. Jews were murdered in Poland. Some were lucky enough to escape. Poland is a place that we visit only to learn to think about. We only think about in the past tense, in the context of tragedy. But not all the Jews left Poland. And during communism, during the 50 years of communism, there was anti-Semitism once again, and the Jews who remained in Poland went underground. They hid their identities. They very often didn't tell their own families that they were Jewish. And since 1989, two remarkable things are happening in Poland. One, non-Jews have taken a tremendous interest in everything Jewish, writing books about the Jews, opening museums, Jewish studies departments. The largest Jewish culture festival in the world is where? Good, very good. Call and response works. Krakow. It's not the place that you expect the largest Jewish culture festival in the world to be. Started by two non-Jews, one of whom is still running the festival in its 33rd year. As a New Yorker, to me, the largest Jewish cultural festival in the world should be in either Brooklyn or the Upper West Side. No, Krakow, Poland, home to the largest Jewish culture festival in the world. So there's something very interesting of Poles trying to reconnect to this Jewish past. Was it all perfect for 1,000 years? Of course not. Was there anti-Semitism in Poland over the centuries? Of course. But it's worth noting, so much of the Holocaust happened in Poland. Why? Why was so much of the Holocaust Poland? Yes, because that's where the Jews were. Why were the Jews in Poland? Because it wasn't so terrible for 800 years, 900 years, and so they were there, right? But that's the backdrop to what's happening today, which is this fascinating non-Jewish interest in all things Jewish has created an environment that the Poles, the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of the Holocaust survivors who didn't leave, the ones who stayed and went underground, are now coming out of the woodwork and stepping forward and returning to the Jewish people. If you Google how many Jews are in Krakow, it says there are 100 Jews. Our JCC has 850 Jewish members. Clearly, the numbers are incorrect somewhere. Our JCC has a preschool. It's the first Jewish preschool to open since the Holocaust. We have 50 Holocaust survivors that we're taking care of. Our building has been open for 15 years. We were founded by King Charles, who opened our building. I don't have time to tell you that story. You can ask me during the Oneg. Our building, for the first 10 years it was open, there was no security at all. Gate wide open, front door wide open. Only when the preschool opened did we decide that we needed security. And young people almost every day are walking into my building, still just having found out they're Jewish in all different ways, and we're bringing them back into the Jewish world. The 6 million number of the Holocaust, this number is written in stone. We can't change the number of Jews murdered in the Holocaust. But there's another category. People like my wife, these young people who are finding out they're Jewish, they're secondary victims of the Holocaust. The number of Jews lost to the Jewish world because of the Holocaust is 6 million murdered and others that were displaced. And we actually have an opportunity that we never thought we would have as a people to do something about the number of Jews lost because of the Holocaust. And this is what our center is having success and doing. That's the Jewish part, but I also want to talk to you a little bit about Ukraine. February 24th, 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Our center is about 2.5 hours. Krakow is about 2.5 hours from the border. We made a decision that we're going to do all we could for Ukraine, decision one, and we made a second decision, which is we're going to help Jews and non-Jews equally. I say equally because it's easy to set up a system to just help Jews, and if the occasional non-Jew walks in, you give them a bowl of soup, and you feel proud of yourself for helping everybody. And this is not what our community was about. We set up a system from the early days, a food pantry, which became housing, which became psychological support, trauma counseling, language classes, and tremendous amount of support for, at this point, we've directly helped 220,000 Ukrainian refugees. 98% of whom are not Jewish. We are still helping between 800 and 1,000 women and children a day. Men between 18 and 60 cannot leave the country. This is a vulnerable population of women and children. Our center was 35 full-time employees the day before the war, and within 2 weeks, we were 75 full-time employees. Why are we doing this? Our history in Krakow, our history as a people, but our history in Krakow very much dictates our response. That 6 million number that I alluded to, why is that number so high? That's a very big number. Hitler was charismatic and got people to follow him, sure. You can get away with things during wartime that you can't do in peace. The Holocaust, the context of the Holocaust was a Europe at war, of course. But that number is so high for one reason, and that reason is indifference. 80 years ago, when the Jews were the primary victims of the Holocaust, the world stood silent. The whole world stood, almost the whole world stood silent. And 80 years later, our Jewish community somehow, miraculously, has been given a chance to be reborn. A community being born down the road from Auschwitz, with people finding out every day that they're Jewish and walking into our building. Jews and non-Jews serving the community. We have 70 non-Jewish volunteers in our JCC. So our community that's been given a chance has learned its history and learned the lesson from its history. And the fact that we were forsaken gives us a particular responsibility to try to make sure others weren't forsaken, which is why we continue to support. Thanks to friends around the world, we've been able to spend $10 million helping Ukraine, which is 6 times our annual budget, and we will continue for as long as we can until the victory. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you. And for those who want to know more, the handout today contains a little more background information and some relevant websites you can go to. Jonathan Arnstein will stick around. He's agreed to stick around for a little bit after services and talk to anyone who wants to hear some more from him after the service. We encourage you to do so. We certainly encourage you not only to learn more about it, but to help with the effort. Thank you. Friends, we turn now to the Aleinu, page 586, and invite the congregation who are here in person to please rise.
ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Let's turn now to page 598 as we remain standing. Shabbat, we're in the Shloshim mourning period, the 30 days since the passing of Bert Wiedberg. This Shabbat marks the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the deaths of Elsie Austin, Will Carmen, Lily Chafkin, Irving H. Cohan, Harry Edelstein, Irving Fisher, Sidney Harris, Israel Kaufman, Daniel J. Krause, Larry Donald Krause, Sally Levin, Rabbi Richard Levy, Barnett Lichtman, Mary Rafalisik, Zvi Mendelson, Blanche Oppenheimer Morris, Bernard Ribbons, Catherine Brooke Ryan, Sylvia F. Schwartz, Christine Silverman, and Ben Weinsoft. We also remember those who've died due to baseless hatred and all those martyred members of the Jewish people who have no one left to say Kaddish for them. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for an abiding blessing. Page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'galal v'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam l'amei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'amam v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say, Amen. Please be seated, and I'm pleased to call upon our president, our wonderful president, Adrian Cohen, with some words of welcome and some announcements.
Thank you, Rabbi and Cantor and Paul Zuhl, for yet another beautiful musical service outdoors. And as always, Matthew and Aaron Ross for your help behind the scenes. Everyone is invited for the Oneg over in Packard Hall following services, where our wonderful guest, Jonathan Ornstein, will be available. Thank you for questions and more discussion about what he's doing in Krakow and what it's like now. Fascinating. Thank you. And thanks again to the Mailing family for bringing him to TBY. We love new members who do wonderful things for us, like bring some great guests. Thank you so much. Torah study tomorrow is in person in the Marcus Library and on Zoom, led by Rabbi Zilberman. There will be bagels and cream cheese. Other programs are WTBY Last Rosh Chodesh of 5783 will be held, led by Rabbi Miriam. And if you have not heard a Rosh Chodesh by Rabbi Miriam, you're missing out. She is amazing. It will be on Tuesday, June 20th at 7 p.m. in the Annex. Jewish Movie Night will feature Maktub on Sunday, June 25th at 3:45 p.m. Our Red, White, and Jew Americana Shabbat returns Friday, June 30th with 2 dining opportunities, one before our pre-Shabbat dinner for early birds and young families with a bounce house. If you haven't caught that, the kids are going to love that. And then services at 6, and then we have a post-Shabbat dinner if the 5 o'clock p.m. one is too early, and all dinners are $18 per person. Check out our website, talk to Mel Bordelon. And also, tonight, we have our amazing Debbie Margolis. Raise your hand. She is our Life and Legacy Chair, and she's here to answer any questions. Join me and 100 other of our members who are leaving a legacy with Temple Bat Yahm for the future. So, terrific thing to do. And again, you're going to hear this every week from me, so sorry, but get your renewals in for your membership. If you haven't already done so, you can log in on your Shul Cloud, talk to Mel Bordelon, who is our new Director of Membership and Temple Experience, and she'll help you with that. And for more events, as always, check out our tby.org website. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Adrian. And next week, we're going to have a guest speaker series in the form of Bill and Barbara Pazetsky, Jessica Herthel, and Brad Pivar, all of whom are very active in PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. They'll be sharing some of their experiences leading groups here at Temple Bat Yahm and in Laguna Beach. We hope you'll join next week for our special Shabbat with PFLAG. And our closing song, we understand from the words of Jonathan Ornstein especially tonight, but we know always that in the absence of peace, many things go wrong in the world. And so we're going to conclude with our classic prayer for peace that I don't think anyone needs to have a book open for. So please rise and join us in Oseh Shalom. Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'akol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'akol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'akol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'akol Yisrael. We thank God for bringing forth bread from the earth, saying,
Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
melech
haolam,
haolam,
hamotzi
hamotzi
lechem
lechem
min
min
haaretz.
haaretz.
B'te'avon. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Join us for the oneg to your left.